So recently, one of the directors for Steel Ball Run, Yoshihiro Kimura, has come out and stated how the opening of the Steel Ball Run, with Sandman being banished from the tribe and discovering the SBR competition, is going to be restructured. Now, this has been met with mixed reactions. Some understand and think the change is going to be for the better, whilst others think it will undermine certain characters and themes relevant to the parts. This video is me just giving my quick 2 cents on the matter and giving some insight into why I think this change might be happening. Overall, I believe that focus is the main reason for the restructuring changes to the opening. To use an example I've already talked about, let's talk about Arcane's opening. If you haven't seen Arcane, I'm going to talk about it in the most vaguest terms possible to avoid spoilers, but still hit relevant points. And if you have seen Arcane, you know what I'm talking about. This is the opening scene to Arcane. Here it sets up the tone for the show, setting of the show, along with some of its themes, and more importantly, introduces its characters, specifically the main two we will follow throughout the show and where they end up. Great opening by all accounts. However, this opening was never originally intended to be the show's opening. Originally, this scene with the show's antagonist was supposed to be the show's opening. Much like the opening that ends up opening the show, it sets up the tone of the show, tells us the theme of the story of opposites, and focuses on a character that's important to the story. This ultimately ends up becoming the opening to the show's 3rd episode. Why? Because if this was the show's opening, it focuses on the wrong person/people. While our antagonist is an important character in his own right, he's not the focus or main character of the story. If you were to open on this, not only would you give your new viewers the wrong impression of the main character and focus, but with how much screen time he gets in these first 3 episodes, it doesn't really make much sense to open the series with him. So, how does this apply to Steel Ball Run's opening? Well, firstly and most obviously, Sandman isn't the main character. Johnny and Gyro are our main characters. While the themes and the world Sandman's backstory introduces us to are important and interesting, Sandman himself, while interesting, isn't the most important character and ends up being a villain of the week, dying in chapter 44 out of the 95 chapters there are in the Steel Ball Run story, with his goal ultimately unachieved. This is not even taking into account that out of those 44 chapters, Sandman only appeared in 16 of them. And even then, that doesn't even take into account the context of those appearances, which could range from a single panel appearance or a longer scene with just a bit of dialogue. And at this point, Sandman and his backstory has taken a backseat to the main story of the corpse parts, overshadowed by arcs such as Scary Monsters and True Man's World, and Jesus Christ has appeared in the previous arc. Focusing on Sandman gives us either one of 2 impressions. One, that this story is his story, and that we are going to see the world and the story progress through his eyes. And 2, even if he isn't the main character, he's going to be a central character to the narrative. Think either a secondary protagonist or maybe even a main antagonist. And as our Steel Ball Run readers know, that's very much far from the truth. So what changes? Well, quite literally, Johnny in the next chapter tells us, "This story is the tale of me starting to walk. Not in the physical sense, but in an adolescence to adulthood sort of way." As soon as Johnny says that, that becomes the story. The story becomes a coming-of-age story set in the backdrop of the Wild West. And this is the hindsight the creators of the anime are working on. They know that the focus of Steel Ball Run is Johnny and Gyro. They pretty much drive the whole story going forward. And if I were to guess, what will open the anime is Johnny's backstory for one of 2 reasons. One, it gives us the deal with our main character and shows us what he's growing from, personality-wise. 2, given that his backstory is given to us pretty much immediately, shows us that compared to Gyro's, there isn't supposed to be much mystery surrounding Johnny's character and his current situation. While Sandman, despite being an interesting character and raising interesting themes that are not only indicative to the time that the story is set in, but still relevant even to the present JoJo with the JoJo lands, is not only not the main character, but the story ultimately regulates him to a villain of the week with his goal and story incomplete, never to touch on it again. So what does that mean for his backstory? Well, let's put it like this. If they remove his scene entirely, which I doubt, that would obviously be horrible. So what's the best case scenario? I think the best case scenario is that they move it back a few episodes, specifically when they reveal that Sandman is going to race the Steel Ball Run entirely on foot and then follow on with his backstory from there. This might be the best of both worlds, as not only do you get the intrigue of the Steel Ball Run early on, but new viewers are going to be hooked by Sandman's strategy and therefore would want to know more about this guy. Worst case scenario? I think they'd place it where it's most relevant, and that would be in his fight alongside Diego with Johnny and Gyro in the Silent Ways arc. While mileage may vary, it would be fine to place it as not only is Sandman in a central arc, but I would say this is where the stage has been set and the part has finally taken a more sharper turn into its more political/deeper elements going forward. So Sandman's story with the plight of his indigenous people of America is going to be fresher in our minds when thinking about Valentine and his plans. With all this being said, it's also very possible for them to make a new opening for the anime that hits the points that everyone loves about the original one. Whether they succeed is the answer we're all anticipating.